Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to another Breaking into Data session. I'm Aaron Falus, founder and CEO of Promotable. So thanks again for coming to our Breaking into Data event series. Before we get started, I have a couple of quick announcements. Check out our upcoming events as well. We've got some interesting stuff coming up for anyone who wants to learn more about product and AI. A really cool speaker from there, and then we also have a couple lined up for someone from KPMG. We also have someone from LinkedIn coming up at the end of March, so really cool stuff. And with that, just a quick note on Promotable, who we are. So at Promotable, so we're a data analytics training group, and really in these events, we invite data experts, business leaders to share their expertise so you can network and learn actionable tips and techniques, move your career forward. And we also, of course, offer virtual live online training programs for those of you who want to dive deeper and take the next step. Our main product is our data science career accelerator. So in partnership with 1871, this income share agreement based live online program is full-time immersive and closes the gap really between learning and getting that first job by going beyond the certificate. We of course start with top-notch instructors who are current practitioners, current data scientists, and hiring managers at top companies who know what it takes to be successful and also hire data scientists. And of course, secondly, we've added a team of mentors who are also current industry practitioners who will provide you with all the insights that you can't learn anywhere else. And lastly, we connect the dots between the classroom and the real world by pairing you with our industry partners for a capstone project. We don't want to just leave you with a passion project. This way you walk away with real experience doing real data science work at real companies that you can put on your resume and show employers. And of course, lastly, it's all backed up by our job guarantee. So we know that it takes a long time, or it takes a lot more than a certificate to be successful. So of course, we love feedback from events, of course, our courses as well. And we update all of that content to make sure that we bring actionable, real world stuff for you to get to the next level. If you want to learn more, check out www.learndata.co. Or stick around after the event and be happy to tell you more. Also, feel free to ping us on Twitter as well, promotable_IO. With that, introducing Bridget Lane. She is a senior product manager at Centro. So this is going to be really cool. I think this is kind of a not talked about enough part of product with kind of looking at your data and using that to make decisions. So I'm sure I've totally butchered that, but I'm going to hand it off and let Bridget take it from here.
Thank you very much, Aaron. And just a quick side note, at Centro, we are hiring product and engineers and designers right now. So feel free to check us out. We'd love to have a conversation. Let me just go ahead and start sharing my screen. Okay, can everyone see my screen? I can't see anyone, so I'm going to guess that's a yes. So just quick introduction. I'm Bridget Lane. I've been in product for a little over 8 years now. I don't know what it's like these days, but I didn't go to product school. Is that a thing, Aaron? Sounds like it might be. For better or for worse, it kind of fell into my lap. At that time, I was actually trying to decide between becoming an analyst or a product person. And the beauty of product is that we get the opportunity to sell anyone our idea. Actually, it's our job to sell everyone our idea. And the only trouble with that is it the right idea? And who knows? There really is no right or wrong answer to this. There's no perfect process when it comes to product management. Ultimately, we can all learn from each other's experiences and try to imitate the good, learn from the bad. I am no expert whatsoever, but what you will get tonight is hopefully a unique perspective and a lot of stellar memes. So I've primarily done product at startups, which has given me unprecedented access to do things that I never should have been allowed to do with no experience. I was negotiating partner contracts, leading API integrations, pricing features, designing my own wires and workflow in Excel, nonetheless. which means that I have a lot of experience to learn from, which is what I'm here to share with you today. So I'm going to go through and tell you 3 stories that give slightly different perspectives of how data can impact your product. Now, imagine that feeling when you have a year or 2 under your belt of doing a job you love and you're starting to look at new opportunities. You know what you want. In my case, I wanted to build a new platform and to work with engineers that were actually in the same office as me. At the time, I was working with engineers in India, Russia, and New York. And a recruiter contacts you. First of all, how cool is that? I loved it. And he took me out to lunch and he starts telling me about this company that just secured their Series C funding and it's going to rebuild their entire platform. Not only that, but their CEO has the most incredible vision and everybody loves him. So the CEO had been dreaming of the product for years and finally has the money to invest in it. He wants to scrape all e-commerce sites in the world and create the perfect product library. He also has very clear, concise goals. He wants to increase data ingestion, have performant product searches, and an easy workflow. For me, I'm thinking, well, ideal, done. I want to go work here. So I got to build data models with very talented senior engineers on a non-relational database, which was brand new and super cool at the time, so hot. Outlined business logic for our matching algorithm. Built a search engine, which sounds a lot easier than it is. We had beautiful, clean designs that were extremely easy to use, and we hit every single one of our goals. So we increased our data collection from 1,000 events per second to 500 events per second. We built a search engine that returned hundreds of thousands of results in less than a second. We were tracking all the user interactions, especially when the users were creating product groups, if they were matching or unmatching products, so that we could automate that in the future. And as we got closer to our production live date, a whole slew of things happened, and we quickly realized that we just built a product that was going to make us no money. In fact, we built a product that cost us money. And so even though we hit that data ingestion, we had performant product searches, we had an easy workflow, the missing link here was our clients, who are brands, were paying for reports that identified fraudulent sales behavior of their products. They weren't paying for a product search library. All right, lesson learned. There's more to it than just having clear goals and great software SLAs. So I'll take another stab at this, and let's go to another product that has been around for a few years. And here we built a sexy feature that was really just to help sales demo when they're demoing to a prospect. It shows the status of a bunch of different products and tasks that need to be completed, and it's all in one view. That was the first type of view in this product. It could also be extremely helpful to our user. Let's call her Emily. And Emily manages a ton of projects and needs to make sure that nothing is slipping through the cracks. So here, I've leveraged Pendo and gone in and realized that 90% of the time, Emily goes into this feature and then just leaves. She doesn't interact with any of the data. She doesn't look for more details. She just leaves and she goes back through global navigation to go to a different section of our platform, which, by the way, she could also do through some of the data that we have presented on this page. So that has me questioning where did we miss here? So I go and I show Emily the page and find out that Emily had no idea that she could interact with it in the first place. Which, shame on us, we probably didn't demo it or we didn't educate her enough on it, or it was obviously not clear that she could interact with it. So we add data visualizations and other UI tricks to help Emily understand that she can interact with the data. Now, 35% of the time, Emily's interacting with the data and displaying, or with the data displayed, and she's taking action and being redirected into the platform. And only 65% of the time is Emily going back to use global navigation. So that kind of leaves me wondering, was this a success or was it not? I don't actually know. I think that it was because we increased the performance of users knowing that they can interact with the page by 25%. But I think that there's also some key information missing here, which is what is the feature intent and a solid understanding of how the user is going to interact with that feature. Let's see. So takes me to the third and final story. So in the first story, we learned the pitfalls of focusing only on software metrics and goals with the CEO. The next one, we learned that there's a lot of questions that are left unanswered when you look at only user metrics. And now this brings me to a point where, have you ever had a ridiculous request from someone in sales? I'm hoping that many of you are shaking your head and that it's not just me. I've had a ton. One day I had a sales guy, let's call him Zach, come to me and say, I need you to put 20% more data science in our product so that I can charge more. Let's just let that sink in. 20% more data science in our product so that I can charge more for it. Yeah. Luckily, Zach and I have a great working relationship, and I've been able to teach him about product management or product development over the years. So I got him to agree to product UX and data science, all going and conducting field research together across 8 different customers in the span of 2 months. The problem is there's still a lot of questions around where we're going to add data science to our product. So just to add a little bit more color there, this product that Zach was referring to is more like a platform. It included client relationship management, asset management, technician management, schedule management, content management, yada, yada, yada. The opportunities to incorporate data science are literally endless. So what do you do in that situation? I went ahead and went with what I knew. We had a couple of models that were already live in production around asset management in other industries. So, and I had at least a base knowledge of that type of user. So focused in on the asset management product. And the target user for this is the asset manager. We're going to call him Luke. So Luke manages about 500 skid steers, and I'll stop there. If you don't know what skid steer is, do you know like when you're a kid on the playground and you've got that thing that shovels up dirt and lets you move it around? It's kind of like the combination of that and a, sorry, my son just walked in. It's a combination of that and, sorry, completely stopped my groove there. It's a combination of that and like a car, but it's got tracks on it. So it's a small little asset that moves the dirt around on a construction site. So Luke manages 500 skid steers for his clients, and he makes sure that they don't fail or have downtime when they're in use. And this is the maximum amount of skid steers that Luke can manage because each skid steer produces about 1,500 alerts a day. So for him, he's trying to maneuver his way through 7,500 alerts on a daily basis. And let's just say that gets pretty old. Not only that, but as I'm watching Luke, he's going to be the first guy to tell you that he's not a computer person, he's a mechanic. So I watched Luke literally type with his pointer fingers. He spell checks everything because everything that he is typing is going to be sent to a client. And you can just tell that he's not really in his comfort zone. If you look at the user analytics from our asset management product, it takes Luke 15 minutes to create a recommendation. He looks at the alert, groups everything, writes a recommendation, sends it off to the client, and it's done. Now, as I'm watching Luke, he is surrounded by monitors. He's reviewing the skid steer alerts. on one monitor, and then he's calling up his client to see what's actually happening. Are they experiencing any sort of issues right now? He goes to another monitor where he has historical maintenance and alerts pulled up on that same asset and assets similar to it, so the same skid steer. He's jotting his notes down on a notepad, and he's trying to make the decision of whether or not he should make a recommendation. He then goes back into the asset management product. He groups the alerts that indicate a potential issue, and then he writes up a problem and he recommends their maintenance. Now, the really cool hack that Luke did here is he actually has a Word document full of that already has all of the problems and the maintenance to match already written out that he did a while ago. So he doesn't have to type this out every time, but he does adjust it slightly. And then he sends it off to his client. So there's so much more than what's in the product, but I was having this discussion with my husband last night because he's also in product. Is that user analytics? I asked him, and he said, no, it's not user analytics. And I went ahead and strongly disagreed with him. Oh, sorry. So yes, even though that data doesn't exist somewhere, there's nothing stopping you from actually creating that data. And as I was on site with Luke, talking to him and telling him that I wanted to start keeping track of this, the most beautiful thing happened. He goes ahead, pulls up a document, and he's already been logging every single recommendation he creates, how long it takes him, and everything that he puts into it. I just found new data that never existed previously. Luke has it. It's Luke Analytics. And ultimately, we were able to automate 90% of his workflow. So what's that mean? We automated 90% of his workflow. It now takes him an average of 30 minutes to create a recommendation. And Luke went from managing 500 skid steers to over 1,200 skid steers on a regular basis. So that more than doubles business opportunity. So now when I go back and talk to Zach, it's not just, look, hey, here's data science in our product. You can actually start telling our clients they're going to lose money if they don't use our product. You can more than double the money on the table. And that's really the utopia for a product person, when you can not only provide value to the user, but also a great sales story, and you know that you've actually gained the user's trust over understanding their whole story, what data they care most about, and making their life easier in the parts that they don't want to spend time doing. So just to kind of reiterate, we had 3 stories. One, the first story about the CEO, you can hit all of your metrics and you still be wrong if they are not the right metrics. 2, it's having an idea of what the metrics mean, and then also how they can be applied to your user and the feature. And sometimes maybe it's just the wrong solution. And then the third is, which we just experienced, you can find data that you didn't know existed, or you can create your own data the entire time. So metrics are a tool. It's really how you use that tool and find the data that matters. And I think what I've found to be the most beneficial is to just continuously stay curious and trying new things. And that is, sadly, yeah, and that's it. I was going to say, did none of my memes work? It's like paused there.
The memes work. They're really good. I especially appreciate the ending meme here. Just totally my humble opinion, but given the claps we're seeing. Okay, folks. Well, I'll take the moderator's prerogative and ask the first question, but go ahead and either raise your hand or put your questions in the little question section on the side of the screen here, and then we'll get to it. But the interesting thing, the metrics point that you made has come up over and over and over again without, honestly, without prompting. It's almost like the further up I go, the more frequently I talk to data people, and obviously for product people as well. But like even we had someone from Marriott, and it was about a month ago maybe, and he had the same thing. He's like, I get 25 different metrics on this report, and we make decisions based on 3 of them. Like, why am I getting all these other things? And like one of the questions that I thought was actually one of the questions from the group that was pretty insightful was, can something be both a vanity metric and not a vanity metric? And I kind of think that you kind of found some of that stuff. What other common mistakes do you see when you? Because I know you went through a couple of the biggies. Are there any other ones that you just see all the time and you're like, oh no, we have to start from scratch here?
It really changes with every single product and every single company too, and every time you can find a lot of consistencies across the different industries. So I've worked in digital advertising, the industrial Internet of Things, where I got to work in like aviation, mining. The way that you display the data, the way that you allow the user to view it and interact with it is so crucial, because that's how you gain the trust of the user. And most of our users are skeptical and are not just going to trust what you're telling them, especially if you're trying to incorporate any sort of data science model output in front of them. They're intrinsically going to question and think that they are the expert. And so for me, I think the constant opportunity is to try and gain the user's trust.
Yeah, interesting. I totally agree. And we have a question here. Gabriel, who's a product manager at Comet Lab, he asked, "Is SQL still a relevant knowledge for becoming a PM, or for someone who's already a PM? Should you learn SQL?" I think more broadly, I think the question he's really asking is like, what data skills are nice to have, and what data skills are like need to have for someone to be successful in product?
It's a great question. I think that the SQL it's a nice to have. I learned it in my first job, and then my next job did not use it, 2 jobs later didn't use it nearly as much. And then now I'm finding that I wish I would have stayed on top of it, because in my current role, I need to be able to write in SQL to pull from a different database that I can pull all of our product metrics from. So it really depends on the company. Some companies put more of an emphasis on it than others. That's fair.
Yeah, I suppose if you're more, if the product is more technical, you're probably going to need to have a lot more of that kind of stuff. Just as someone who's, obviously you're relatively senior in your product career, what kinds of stuff do you think are like super essential for folks who might be thinking about either transitioning from marketing to product, or kind of moving into a product-facing role? Like what kinds of stuff do you think is like, you have to have this?
So that's where it's hard when it comes to product management.
I love that.
In my first 2 roles, in my first role, I didn't have anyone else in product, so it was only me reporting into operations. So I went and I just tried to read everything that I could in product management. And in my next role, I actually reported into the VP of engineering. So I got much more technical in that role and comfortable with reviewing code and being active in the back end and commenting on code reviews. So, and then it took my third role where I actually worked with other product people, and I learned so much just from seeing how different product people would go and either present something to their engineering team or to the sales team, and different tactics that they did to try and do customer research and trying to kind of put their story together to validate why they want to build something. Mm-hmm. The Marty Kagan book, I don't know if that's still relevant, but 8 years ago, that was pretty hot to have read. And honestly, he has a lot of good foundational information in it.
What is the title of that book? Just so I can put it into the chat for everyone.
Let me see here. It's the Marty Kagan inspired book. So how to create tech products customers love.
Tech products Yeah, no, it's interesting. It's like the concept of having to actually go and talk to your customer and ask them is like the simplest thing, and something that we all forget, including me. So it's one of the super relevant question. Here we go. We've got Karina asked if you're at a point where you're building a product from scratch, from the ground up, how do you know which data tools or software work best with your product, or do you build it in-house? I have a personal bias, but I'll let you go for it.
Ooh, I'd love to hear that. It depends on the type of product that you're building. Sadly, everything depends on everything.
Yeah.
I think the best thing to do is to look at where you want your product to be in the next 3 to 5 years. And personally, especially younger in my career, I always wanted to build everything in-house just because I wanted to have that custom capability. But there's some tools that are getting very savvy out there. So right now I'm using Pendo, and you can tag interactions on a page, and it's very easy to use. And we actually have some of our customer success and salespeople in Pendo as well. So the benefit of leveraging a data analytics software that's already out there is that other teams can also get used to using it. Sorry, I actually just realized I might have misunderstood the question. I was thinking about user tracking. Is this one about user tracking, or is it specifically about?
This is data more broadly, but I think you answered the question in the sense that at one point you thought that building something in-house made the most sense because you want something that's a little more custom, a little more unique to your needs. I totally get that. My experience was the other way around, where before I started at a company, they had already built a custom backend, and then anytime we wanted to integrate anything off the shelf, it was like tons and tons of work.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't like I was like, oh, it's only $50 a month, and they're like, oh no, it's $50 a month, but then we have to spend however much time, how much dev time integrating this into our product. And so it's like, for me, it was more, I mean, you had to take it with a grain of salt, right? For me, it was just like my suggestions got thrown out because I was like, oh, this is a great idea. And then they're like, yeah, except for the fact that we can't do any of these things.
Yeah. We also, I've had experiences with data products that, or data visualizations that severely are lacking, and like we were iframing them in rather than like doing a full integration. So I think you also need to look at how your commitment.
Yeah.
And you need to like fully commit and follow their roadmap if you're going to do that. But it is much easier, and even though we all love building our own, it's that
right.
market.
But yeah, no, it depends on like what. I think the earlier thing, I think the takeaway is it depends.
Yeah.
It depends on like how integral this thing is to your product. If it's the main product, maybe something custom makes sense. If it's like a side thing, maybe something off the shelf makes the most sense. Because I think what you're talking about also is like shelfware, right? Where you do this all the time, where you buy these tools. And then you end up like with 3 different data viz tools, and no one knows who uses what, but you're paying for all of it, and you've got like an IT consulting company doing a Tableau integration, someone else doing Click, and it's a total disaster.
Yeah.
So another question from Marvin. He's asking about, so they're building a game app of some kind, and in that scenario, where would a PM be most effective?
I mean, same thing. The product person is looking to help you understand the market and being able to translate it into priorities and acceptance criteria, and really working between design, engineering, and then I don't know if your game is going to be sales or if it's just going into the app store and hoping that people can download it from there. They're going to be able to help you prioritize everything, make sure that you're focused in so when I say acceptance criteria, like you can be you can say that you want to launch, if it's trivia, let's say that you just want to launch a product where the user can see 10 different questions at once, and that's going to rotate on a regular basis, and they can play it with 2 or more people. And there's a significant gap between allowing a user to play the trivia game with 2 people compared to allowing the user to play the game with 4 people. The product person is going to weigh the pros and cons and trying to determine whether or not you actually should be investing only on like the 2-person versus 4-person or more. And they should be doing a lot of market research and looking at your competitors and trying to see how you can differentiate yourselves in the market.
Sorry, I was just chuckling because Marvin just confirmed that it's a trivia game. And so it was like you guessed it perfectly with the example you used, which is always great. And then Gabriel had another question about how do you approach, so you've gone through, you launched your product, you collected some data. How do you tell when something is like causation versus correlation?
I think it depends on how much time you have to actually dig into it. Sometimes, let's say that Zoom just built out a really good feature that, I don't know, allows new backgrounds before the pandemic hit. And then the pandemic hit, and you could see all of their sales skyrocket. You could see everyone buying personal Zoom accounts compared to when it was primarily a business thing. My mom was talking to me about how she could use Zoom and wanted to Zoom with me. So their market just boomed. It's really hard to tell if that is just causation versus correlation. I would say it's definitely a causation because of how much their market expanded beyond just businesses. It went into a whole new consumer market for them, which also made them start to release a ton of new features. Now, what's the longevity to those features? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I guess
that's the best question right there. The longevity.
Yeah. So I guess I would say that based off of the metrics that you're looking to tell, that's the other thing. With data, it's hard because you can tell whatever story you want to tell. If you gave me a set of metrics, I could argue for both causation or correlation.
Yeah, it depends. It
Yeah,
depends.
that's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, no, like we come back always to a certain like set of themes, and it's always like you find like frequently like I'll get like people say things like, oh, we've like invested a bunch of money in data, data tech or whatever, and then they'll say, but our ROI isn't there. We've spent all this money, but we don't have like these amazing insights that the consultants told us we'd have, right?
Yeah.
And the classic case is like they made the dashboards, but they're solving for, they're just being reactionary to like what the random dashboard says versus like what are we actually looking for. And that's like classic case. How much time do you have left? I know you said you had to run earlier.
Yeah, I've got about 5 minutes left.
Cool. Okay, well then in that case, we've got time for one more questions, guys. So next first person to raise their hand or drop something in the questions box, we'll get to it. And then also this talk is being recorded as well, so if you wanted to rewatch it, catch it later, it'll all be on our YouTube channel. Be sure to send that out. And here we go. Getting a lot of thumbs up. Also, shout out. We have quite a few like non-US people joining. People like I found someone from Brazil, someone from Australia. We appreciate it because I know that timing is terrible. Really cool. Give everyone a minute or so, and then if we don't have any other questions, we can sign off. And kind of take it from there.
Sounds good.
Oh, it's 9:00 in Brazil. Okay, that's not so bad.
I hope that you liked it. The correlation and causation was a great question.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's something that always comes up. I think is really hard for folks to understand. And I think the point that you made about depending on how much time you have and like how much does it cost to test, If you can just put it out there and it costs you nothing to run an A/B test, like why not?
Yeah.
Get the information. If it's like going to be mission critical, if it is not successful, like maybe take the time. Awesome. Okay, well, I think that's a wrap, folks. Thanks again for joining. Again, I'll send everyone the follow-up with the YouTube channel so you can go back and rewatch. Thanks again, Bridget. I think this is really good. And we'll take